Hello guys, my name is Heather and welcome back to my channel. I feel like it's been a hot minute since I've done a sit down video, but I'm very excited for today's video because it is my fall TBR. Now, normally when I do a TBR, I do it monthly, but September is my birthday month, and pretty much with the exception of a couple of things, all I asked for is books, and I don't know what books I'm gonna get. So I would rather not make like a very specific September TBR other than the books I know I have to read for book clubs. So with that out of the way, may I introduce to you my fall TBR, all the books that I hope to read pretty much throughout the months of September, October, and November. We are going to start with horror because what screams horror like fall? And I only have 2 books in this category right now. I don't own either of them at the moment. The first is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. This one just sounds like it's got all of the makings of a good spooky time. It's told from the point of view of a child. I think her parents are kind of going through some stuff, and every time this child goes into her room, there is this other entity there named Other Mommy that says, "Can I come into your heart?" And that's pretty scary. And then the other one that I would like to read is So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. Rachel Harrison overall has been a big hit author for me. I've only read 2 of her books, the first being Cackle, which I absolutely loved. And I have been chasing a book that feels like Cackle since I read it, and I have not found it. And then I also read Black Sheep last year, which was a pretty controversial book that I like, but I feel bad saying that I liked it. All that said though, Rachel Harrison knows how to write a horror book, and she's got So Thirsty coming out this year. I don't know much about it other than we've got a girl and her best friend that go away on like a girls' weekend, and they get involved with some people that might have eternal consequences. And I mean, look at the cover, it's a vampire book, right? It's a vampire book. Moving into the next category, which is thrillers and mystery. We'll group mystery and thrillers together. First book I have thankfully comes from my physical TBR. I am trying to get through a lot of my physical TBR books in the rest of the year because my TBR cart is so heavy that the wheels broke. I have got the Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. One of my real life friends so graciously just gave me this book, and I'm very excited to get to it. I've liked the other Simone St. James books I have read, and I think obviously we have got an investigator looking into some cold cases in this book, but she always weaves a little bit of paranormal into her books. So yes, it's a thriller, but I'd also throw like thriller horror into the mix for this one. So I'm excited to get to it. The next mystery thriller on my list is one I am so excited about. If you guys know me, you know I love Richard Osman. I've got all of his books sitting back there on my shelf right now. And mid-September, we are getting a new book from him, a brand new series called We Solve Murders, which I think is gonna be like a murder mystery that kind of travels around the world. And it is a father-daughter-in-law team solving the murder. I love father-daughter books, so this one sounds like it's going to be right up my alley. And if it's Richard Osman, he's going to hit us with some like hard-hitting feelings along the way too. And there's a cat on the cover. The last one that I have in the mystery thriller category is actually an ARC that I've got from NetGalley, and that is Close Your Eyes and Count to 10 by Lisa Unger. I don't know exactly what this one is about, but when I was reading the synopsis, some keywords kind of triggered my attention, and that is epic game of hide and seek on an island and things go wrong. I love a game-based thriller. I enjoyed the other Lisa Unger book that I read, which was Secluded Cabin, Sleep 6. It wasn't like my favorite and it wasn't the most memorable, but in the moment I had a really, really good time with it. She definitely kept me guessing, so I hope that this one is a little bit more like heart racing, heart pounding, like anxiety, stressful situation because of the hide and seek aspect, but I think it'll be a good time, and I'm always grateful to receive an ARC, so cool. Let's talk about sci-fi next. You guys know I'm not the biggest sci-fi reader, but I so badly want to be a big sci-fi reader. I feel like my brain doesn't always fully comprehend what's happening in a sci-fi book, but that said, I do have 2 on my list right now. The first one is a sequel to a series I've already started. I read Red Rising last year, and I have had Golden Sun on my TBR ever since, and this cover just says I have to read it in the fall. It just does. Like, it's yellow, mustardy, and red. And I know this isn't an autumn book because it takes place in outer space, but I'm gonna read it in the fall. just like Red Rising. Next, I have a book that I've definitely put on TBRs before, but I haven't gotten to it yet. It is a brick, but I recently got a hold of the audiobook, and that makes me even more excited to read it. And that is Paradise 1. Not only is this a sci-fi book, this is also a horror book. I'm gonna read you the synopsis of this one because I literally have no idea how to explain this book, so just listen for a second. Paradise 1, Earth's first deep space colony. For thousands of people, it was an opportunity for a new life until it went dark. No communication has been received from the colony for months, and it falls to Firewatch Inspector Alexandra Petrova and the crew of the Artemis to investigate. What they find is more horrifying than anything they could have imagined. She's a chonker. I love the way this book feels in my hands though, and with the audiobook, I'm hoping I can get pretty far into this book because there is a sequel coming out relatively soon, I think. I don't know, don't quote me on it. Next, let's talk some romantic picks. I have got 2 books left in the Love Light Farm series, and I just fell in love with this series again when I picked up In the Weeds over the summer. I've got the next book, Mixed Signals, ready to go, and I of course want to pick up Business Casual because it takes place in the fall. Mixed Signals is the summer book, Business Casual is the fall book, and I just love the way she writes her characters. It's not just love stories. There's so much more going on in these books than the love story. We get a very Gilmore Girls-esque town. It takes place on a farm that is very seasonal, depending on the weather, depending on what's going on. They might be growing different crops, or they might be a Christmas tree farm, or they might be a pumpkin patch, and there's just so much fun things going on. But at the heart of the story, it is a very deep look into our characters' lives and what makes people the way they are, what makes you appreciate the people that you have in your life, and I just love these books. I'd like to read all of her books before her new series comes out in February. The other romance pick I have is not necessarily fall, but I'm gonna try and read it before the weather cools off. I just love this book. I love the way it looks. I love the concept of it, and that is The Art of Catching Feelings by Alicia Thompson. It's like pop art, comic book style cover. Like I just love the way this book looks. It's a baseball romance. It's a baseball romance. Before I talk fantasy, there is one kind of lit fic / historical fiction book I'd like to get to, and that is for a multitude of reasons. First of all, it's a book club pick for one of my in real life book clubs, and we're meeting at the beginning of September to talk about this book, and that is Let Us Descend by Jesmyn Ward. I'm actually gonna grab my computer so I can read you the synopsis of this one. Let Us Descend is a reimagining of American slavery, as beautifully rendered as it's heart-wrenching. Searching, harrowing, replete with transcendent love, the novel is a journey from the rice fields of the Carolinas to the slave markets of New Orleans and into the fearsome heart of a Louisiana sugar plantation. Sold south by the white enslaver who fathered her is the reader's guide through this hellscape. As she struggles through the miles-long march, Annis turns inward, seeking comfort from memories of her mother and stories of her African warrior grandmother. Throughout, she opens herself to a world beyond this world, one teeming with earth and water, of myth and history, spirits who nurture and give, and those who manipulate and take. While Ward leads readers through the descent, this, her 4th novel, is ultimately a story of rebirth and reclamation. So it sounds like it's going to be a pretty deep, pretty hard to read story with all of the talk of slavery and what this poor girl has gone through and the way that she turns inward to comfort herself and create a new world for herself. But Jesmyn Ward is a Mississippi author. I've heard her speak one time, but I have not read a book by her yet. And she is kind of the featured speaker at Mississippi Book Festival next month. Not only that, she's a phenomenal speaker, but not only that, but LeVar Burton from Reading Rainbow is going to be the moderator and like interviewer of the discussion. So I feel like I absolutely have to read this book. I want to go pick up a physical copy so that if I have the opportunity, I can get her to sign it. And finally, let's get into some fantasy reads, because that is the bulk of what I want to read this fall. We're going to start out strong with The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan. If you watched my 24 books I want to read in 2024 at the beginning of the year, you know that this one and the next one, which is The Fires of Heaven, were on my books that I really needed to get to. And I have picked this one up. I am not trying to read this within like a month's time frame or anything. This book is almost 1,000 pages long and it feels like it, but I really want to pick back up on my Wheel of Time reading journey. My friend who I'm buddy reading this with is so far ahead of me now, and I want to be able to discuss this book with him because that's the whole point of a buddy read. So I've got this one, and then maybe in the winter I will pick up book 5 so that I can be where I said I wanted to be by the end of the year. Another arc I have, this book has already been published, but I still have the arc, is The Sky on Fire by Jen Lyons. This is another author who will be at Mississippi Book Fest, and they are finally doing a fantasy panel. Finally, I have been waiting for so long for a fantasy and a romance panel. Haven't gotten the romance yet, but I will take the fantasy this year. Another book that I really would like to get to soon is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed. I absolutely love the story of Macbeth. It was the first Shakespeare show I was ever a part of, and while we didn't put on like an actual production of it, I had to learn which one's part in 7th grade drama class, and I got to perform it in other grade levels as well, and I have always had just like a very strong connection to this play. Now, if you know anything about theater, you do not say the word Macbeth when you're actually in a theater. It is cursed. But I'm very excited to read kind of a reimagining of Macbeth's tale from Lady Macbeth's point of view. We also have A Promise of Peridot by Kate Golden. You guys know I really enjoyed A Dawn of Onyx when I read it not too long ago. I did not think it was the most amazing, breathtaking, stunning fantasy book I'd ever read, but that said, I flew through it and I had an absolutely thrilling time reading it. I loved the characters. I loved that the story wasn't too deep or too dense and I could just fly through the story and feel like I got what I was supposed to out of it. I've had the sequel for a while, and since the third book comes out in October, A Reign of Rose, I think it's high time I get to A Promise of Peridot. Very excited about this next book, and if anything screams fall, it is this book, and that is A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. My friend Liv gifted me this for my birthday last year, and I just didn't get around to it, and this year that's changing. Like, this is one of my next reads, TBH. So this book is about this witch who can't say that she's a witch, but she like pretends to be a witch on YouTube or something like that, and she gets invited to this house to kind of be like a teacher of witchy things to these children. And I think that there is a love story between the caretaker of the house and her. Some of these details might be wrong, but you get the gist. It sounds like a cozy, heartwarming, sweet time, and I am so excited. And that's going to make me ready to read her second book, which is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, that comes out this spring, this upcoming spring. Another book that I don't own yet, but that I'm very excited to get to soon, is The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. This series is very, very like close to my heart because it's the first series read along that we're doing on my Patreon, which is The Magical Menagerie. It's linked down below. The conversation we had surrounding the first book was a highlight of the month for me. The month we had that discussion. I didn't know how it was going to go. I was really nervous. I didn't think people were going to like show up, but people showed up and they showed out in the conversations that we had, and it has made me so excited to get to The Kingdom of Copper. This is one that like as soon as I get, paid, I'm going to go pick up at Barnes & Noble ASAP so that I can start it. Speaking of sequels, I finished Daughter of No Worlds like in one of the very first YouTube videos I ever put up forever ago, and I have not read the sequel yet, which is Children of Fallen Gods. This is by Carissa Broadbent. You may know her from her Serpent and the Wings of a Night duology. However, I loved the first book of this series even more than I liked Serpent and the Wings of Night. It feels very epic fantasy in scale, while still being a romantasy. And I'm about to say something that might ruffle some feathers, but I'm kind of getting tired of romantasy. Throw some tomatoes at me if you will. I just feel like all of it feels so similar. And I'm not saying all romantasy is bad or anything like that. I love romantasy. I just want there to be romantasy that does something new. And I feel like this series, despite being several years old at this point, is a fresh breath of air in the romantasy genre, because we're getting epic world building, we're getting fantastic characters. The magic in here is very cool, and like the world just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm very excited to finish this series. She is another brick. Y'all can tell I've got several books that are gonna take some patience and time and dedication to get through just because they're so thick, but I'm very excited to get to this book too. The last two books I have in my fantasy stack also scream fall. Unfortunately, some of the pages of this first book got a little crispy, and I'm not sure why, but the first book that I have is The Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. This one like took over everything when it first came out, and I did not pick it up then. I've been a little intimidated by it, to be honest. I know Jay Kristoff is like pretty dark in his writing. I never read I forget what it's called, the one with Mia Gover. I never read that series. I know it was pretty dark. And I think this series is pretty dark too, but the way that I've heard people talk about it makes me think that I'm really going to enjoy it. It kind of feels like it's going to be more of like a historical tale, but vampires and magic, obviously. And it's got the trope of a person telling his own story, which I always enjoy that. So I'm excited to get to this, and hopefully the second one comes out in paperback pretty soon if it's not already out, so that my copies will match. And the last book I have on my fall TBR, I'm a little bit nervous about, just because I heard so many people saying it was kind of more of a goofy, silly time than they anticipated. And while I'm all for a goofy, silly time, I do need there to be depth to the story, so I'm hoping that this one does have the depth as well. It's a debut author. It's Dreadful by Caitlin Rosakis. And I'm not going to read the summary of this one because, I don't know, I just feel like going in blind. I think there's like a giant squid or octopus or something, and there's one person that finds out that they're actually the villain of the story or something. Here's what got me. Cozy garlic festival. So I don't think the stakes are going to be all that high in this book, but doesn't it just look like a fall book? Like, this book looks like it was written to be read in like October or November. Garlic festival, right? If I don't like it, I'll DNF it and I'll donate it to my used bookstore. But I want it to be good for so many reasons. First of all, it just sounds cute. Second of all, it's the first book I got from Aardvark Book Club, and it just feels so good. Their books feel like butter. Their hardcovers are beautiful. They also feel like butter. So please, oh, I didn't even show you. The spines of these books are beautiful from Aardvark. So please be good. All right, friends. Did any of these books make it onto your fall TBR? If so, please let me know. If not, let me know some books that you are so incredibly excited to pick up in the next 3 months. I'm sure there will be even more that I read. I'm sure some of these books will get swapped out for other books. You just never know. But I mean, you can't say that going through all of your fall TBR books doesn't make you excited for the season, and I, for one, am excited. As always, my social media is linked down below. Check it out. I've got Instagram linked down there. I've got my Patreon linked down there. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye, guys.